And we are live on the Icecast Live. Good evening, Andy. How you doing, mate?
Evening, Shane. Nice to see you, mate. Been a little while again.
It has, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I've missed you. I've missed you.
I'm here. We've as you can tell from my background now, we've moved house. I'm no longer sat up in our bedroom. I've got my own office in our new house. And there's a little clue over my shoulder there about our guests this evening. I've got
I could just see it.
There's a copy of the first issue of Wordsmith.
Ooh.
Apparently we order now on Kickstarter.
Yeah,
so it's telling us.
Doing great guns, I think. Last time I checked, they'd like quadrupled the target or something like that. So
yeah, Indie Comics are smashing it, mate.
They are, mate. They are. And I'm guessing it must be pretty damn good. So we're going to be talking to Dave West, the writer, and Ian Ashcroft, the artist. We've got them both, which is always nice, you know. So without any further ado, Sam, if you can roll the VT, mate, we'll crack on with the show. And good evening.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome, Dave, and welcome, Ian. Nice to see you guys.
Thank you.
Smiling.
We're here to talk about the new book, Kier Wordsmith. And what was the title of the book?
It's the Inbetween.
Right. Sorry, I think I lost you guys. Lost me for a second there. I think I lost signal. Yeah. Sorry about that. So the Inbetween, yeah.
Yeah.
And I understand that it's entitled that. It's entitled that due to the fact that it's actually in between two other books that are pre-existing.
Yeah, it's kind of a play on it, really. So she goes in moving from book 1 to book 2. She goes through the nexus, which is called the Inbetween. But it's also between those issues. We're trying to be a little bit clever, I think. Maybe too clever for our own good. But yeah, we didn't want to kind of break the flow of the story with the in-between issue, which would be a whole issue. But we wanted to tell that story at some point, and we had some feedback that someone said, well, how did you get from issue 1 to issue 2? What happens in the middle? So we thought we'd do it sooner than later, hence the in-between issue. I think we lost Shane again, I think.
But we can keep talking.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Go on, Ian. Wade in.
I think the way it sort of came about was Dave we were talking about how we could show this world that she goes into. She basically can pass through different shadows into different sort of worlds, but we hadn't explored that in either of the first 2 issues. And we talked initially about doing it as sort of like a bonus piece for issue 3 that was coming out, but it just became more than what we thought it was going to be. The more pages were drawn, we developed it a lot more until it became something that was a little bit more substantial, and we thought it was worthy of a Kickstarter in its own right, really.
Yeah.
I mean, can you give us a little bit of backstory about the character? I mean, who created her?
So the character, Kier, the character goes back about 15 years, actually. So in a comic I'm just putting together now, the trade for collected edition called Stevenson's Robot. There's a character called Jigsaw Girl, and she's kind of the key character to all my comics. So she even appears in West Noir. She's a key character that people won't pick up on necessarily. They don't need to, don't have to. But it's all about this girl that goes through. She becomes the Jigsaw Girl, but it's all about, can you avoid fate? So if you see your future, your destiny, can you avoid it? So this is her journey through all those comics, but it's about, can she change the things she's seen are going to happen to herself in the future? So
are Kier Wordsmith and Jigsaw Girl the same person?
Yes. Yeah. So this is like the origin story. I had the idea kind of quite a few years before I met Ian to tell this story, and it's similar to the story with Gold, although it has evolved a little bit through Ian's art, so things I can do with Ian's art. But it kind of was a seed of an idea I had, and I've tried I've kind of seen a few artists I thought could probably do it. It needs a sort of a fantasy kind of element to it. But when Ian came along and did a kind of a story for the West Noir, that we did Tales of West Noir story for us, I just knew that he could nail it. But then it was persuading him to commit to doing a number of issues of something. It's easier writing these things than it is to sit for hours at a drawing board.
So, as Ian, have you been the only artist on Kia?
Yeah, on Kia Wordsmith, but there's been a few that have drawn the Jigsaw Girl before, as Dave just said. So you've got someone called Brad Tuttle who goes under Indio, and he does the artwork for Stevenson's Robot, which is another Accent UK book. And then part of this issue, we've also got the artwork of Marlene Lowe, who was the first person, I think, to draw the Jigsaw Girl. Yeah. And I can remember seeing a short story that Dave had done with her, and I really loved the idea and the concepts of it and the art as well. And I just thought I'd like to almost do a retelling of that story. And that's where, when Dave said about what kind of things could go on in this sort of dreamscape, in this surreal landscape, I thought it'd be an opportunity to sort of tell that story that you can see in the Jigsaw Girl, and really bring it out and have those surreal elements and running through it as well, but still have like a narrative and a story that people can follow.
Yeah, so the art you can see is the first kind of, I guess, the first real drawing of Jigsaw Girl, as she were, by Marlene Lowe, that appeared in the backstory within the Stevenson's Robot comic. So Marlene sadly passed away, I think it was last year. Very young, very talented lady, a real shame. So we're going to dedicate this comic to her as well, just as a small tribute. But yeah.
All right.
I think as well,
I keep cutting out at the worst times.
We'll keep it going. We'll keep it going, mate. As
yeah,
always.
Keep it going. My signal's terrible.
We'll keep it going. Switch to your phone, maybe.
Yeah, it'll settle down eventually. It does settle. It says full signal. It'll settle down.
So yeah,
Carry on. Sorry.
What was an 8-page kind of extra, kind of almost a reward tier within the Kickstarter, became a full-fledged 24-page, beautifully illustrated story.
Wow.
The way that Ian and I collaborate is kind of, I mean, every artist I work with is different, just completely different. And with Ian, we tend to discuss things. I give the main kind of plot points, I guess, and then let Ian take it with his art. I think that's how we're kind of arriving at that kind of place. We didn't start that way, and it's kind of arriving at that way. So it's quite organic, and I'll get things back, and then we'll discuss Ian's ideas for something that we could show. And then this is Ian's kind of pencils of the actual issue. So we'll do a little sketchbook size A5 kind of extra within Kickstarter, just showing the pencil work, because it's very, very detailed pencils. It's very kind of finished. So we kind of work in a very collaborative way, which I think is better for the comic, because my idea is he adds things to it visually, which I then build into the story. So it's an interesting process.
So it's sort of a to and fro between the two of you, then.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's fair, Ian, isn't
it? Yeah, definitely. I mean, I really enjoy working with Dave, and he's very kind to me, and he'll let me sort of go in which directions I want with it. I'm seeing some of the pencils going up right now, and then
it's beautiful stuff.
Thank you, mate. Yeah. I appreciate that. And then really just Dave will let me run with different ideas, especially on this book, because really anything can go in it. So we had lots of different sort of concepts and characters, and this idea of almost like a time loop where Kay is coming in and seeing a set of possible version of herself in the future. And there's elements of fantasy art in it and illustrations, but there's also quite a strong horror element that I think would, hopefully it's going to shock people about halfway through the book.
It shocked me.
Yeah,
it shocked you and you wrote it. There you go.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you think of what the character is about, this idea of the Jigsaw Girl, it's someone who's had a horrific event happen to her, so we don't shy away from that in the illustrations that we do, and just really enjoyable project to work on. It's a bit more of, I suppose, a book of illustrations or a series of illustrations. There is sequential art in there. But I
did notice that it was very illustrative, and even the sequential pages. There's a lot of space, isn't there, to actually let go with your drawing style. Well, I assume that the color stuff is digital painting, is it?
Yeah, so I'll draw it all in pencil. So it all gets done in pencil first, and then it gets scanned in, and then I alter it. And a lot of what you're seeing is from the Inbetween now. But if you go to like issue 1 and 2, they're far more traditional sequential storytelling, where you'll have between like 5 and 8 panels on a page. But even with them, Dave always sort of gives me a few pages where I can play around and add whatever I want.
I can't control him, basically. He's uncontrollable. And he shouldn't be. I love the way that different artists work in different ways. I mean, but they all, if they start getting some vibe going, they want to kind of pursue something artistically. I'd certainly encourage it, because that's when you get the best from them, I think. So why would I stop it when you get pages like this? Why would you stop it?
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? And there's a lot of people who really enjoy that sort of work as well. That more illustrative stuff, But you're still telling the story, Obviously, you spent the pages where you're telling the story. It's good balance.
Could have crammed it into probably 8 pages. Could have crammed it really in, but we'd have lost so much.
Yeah.
So, it's just, and what's the point of that? It's a beautiful book. I mean, it's one of those things I say at the end of the but every page was like, George, I'm really good. Each page came through, and I was like, okay, as soon as the email came, whatever I was working around, I quickly write and have a look at it. It's like, oh my God, it's just tremendous,
It's a high standard.
Thank you. At the end of the day, it's still a comic, though. We're still trying to create a comic, and it's still got those panels in it, and it's still got the flow to the storytelling. That's a big part of it as well.
So with the Kickstarter,
sorry, go on,
with the Kickstarter currently running, are there tiers where you can get the previous stories? Can you get the previous?
So we've done the whole 3 issues you can get for a tenner. With about £3 postage. So we've reduced the price. So get people in, onto the book.
And what's the name of that for our viewers? What's the name of that?
On the spot now, aren't you? God, what's the name of that? I can't remember what the name of that tier is. It's the £10.
The robber, the bandit, the
I think it might be the robber. I don't know. I'm sorry. Look for the £10 here. There's only one.
The £10. Well, we'll all be putting in on that one, I think.
We're about people reading the books, not making a load of money. So we just want to kind of get people to read these.
That's like £4 a book, which is
And this one, the other 2 are 24 pages. This one's about 36, I think, because it's got the extra story from Arlene in it as well. So.
And I know it's sort of grown, hasn't it? From, like you said before, it's grown as it was just like an extra part of a Kickstarter, and now it's grown into this. How did that come about? I mean, was it just the fact that you just get you got these beautiful pages, and you just thought to yourself, I need to do more with this?
That was him.
That's all Ian. All Ian.
Ian just the art, it just started to come flowing. I think the art, I guess, in, didn't it? So you suggested, can we build on a little bit more and do a little bit more with it? So the story's always there. The nexus has always been defined. The nexus is a thing that has certain rules. Ian then wanting to explore things now because of the way the art was flowing, and absolutely. So
that's issue 1 that's up on the screen at the moment. But the idea of it was we were going to have this sort of sequence that was always almost like a mirror event. So it was going to lead up to the center pages, and then almost sort of what had happened in the first half of the book in a way was going to be mirrored in the second half of the book. So that was the sort of initial concept. And then the more I thought about it, the more I looked at Dave's old story of the Jigsaw Girl, and I thought it'd be really great to get that into the book somehow. So then that became. the main.
We can see the
focus of
tears now. We can see the tears now on the
That's
screen.
That's the old one.
Is that the old? Sam, get the new one up.
That's issue 1.
Who's been helpful?
Oh, he was, bless him. He was. He's a good lad.
We get some good. We played the video. You see a lot of Ian's art in this one. But yeah, it just grew. It grew, and it's just a lovely book. But Ian's already working on issue 3, which gets back to the main narrative, the actual what happens to her.
Right.
So that's yeah.
So is Ian? You're now going to be the regular artist on this book, are you?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been the artist on Kia, and I've said to Dave, I'm happy to do as many issues on this book as possible. Yeah. Really.
Jeez, don't go committing to that.
No,
400 issues later.
That's it now. Yeah,
massive beard.
And Andrew, shush. Can we mute Andrew? Sam, mute Andrew.
You've not told him how fast the art is.
I really enjoyed the book, and Dave's been really good to me, and you know, I'm happy to draw this book as long as Dave wants me on it. And
but are you squeezing it in with a day job as well?
Yeah, aren't we all?
Yeah.
I'm an art. I teach art at a secondary school as well, so
yeah.
I've got that, yeah, and then I've got 2 kids. And
what do your pupils think of this? Do you show your pupils your indie comics work? Do they have an opinion?
We do a lot of. We look at a lot of comic book artists, but no, I don't really. I don't really want to make my art lessons about me. It's about what they produce in the artwork.
But are the kids aware that you're an artist as well as a
Some
teacher?
of them are. I mean, to me it's a hobby, so it's part of something that I like to keep separate from my work to a certain extent. But
it's just that for kids, they just think that a teacher is just a teacher. They don't really realise that they've got kids or got, other hobbies.
Yeah, I mean, you try and interact with them, you try and get to know them well, and make sure that they're getting as much as possible from the lessons. But during when it's lesson time, I'm far more interested in what they're producing and what they can do than me sort of showing off what I've done recently.
This is about me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's good to know there are still some good professionals in the field.
That's very good. That's a good attitude.
Yeah. Hello, Ian. Your daughter's done a piece for the latest Kickstarter, hasn't she?
Yeah, she has. She's done. I'm really proud of her. She's only 10, and she's when you get on the Kickstarter, if you go and check it out, one of the first stretch goals is a sketch card by her. And
Wicked.
I'm so proud. So Dave produced my first piece of published work, and he's going to publish Eva's first piece as well. And then the other stretch card is by Dylan Teague, and that's amazing.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
See if we can get that on the screen at some point. Sam, if you can do that, that'd be really good.
Get that Kickstarter. It's got some great artwork from quite a few artists building up now, because we keep knocking through the sketch stretch goals. So there's some really lovely stuff on there.
So if, for instance, if we just backed the comic, then we went and added the stretch goals afterwards.
No, you just
how it works.
Stretch goals.
So just keep going. Oh, so when you have you already hit?
If you buy
hit the target.
If you buy the physical comic for what is it, £5, Dave, on its own, you get all the sketch cards and everything like that.
Wow,
cool.
There's pledge levels from like £2 for the digital, all the way up to £100 if you want to get really involved in it. But along the way, there'll be something for most people if they like the project and they like the art.
So any physical back against all the cards that come out. So far, there's 2 that we've hit that target. We're nearly at the 3rd one, and then there'll be a 4th one as well. So yeah.
So if you just spend your £5, you get Eva's and Dylan Teague's sketch card.
Yeah.
Isn't that fantastic?
That's really cool. That's
really good. That's a really good way of working Kickstarter, because you've obviously you had quite a low goal to start with, and you've quadrupled it plus.
Yeah, we'll set it about £500 because basically I'm printing it anyway.
You're going to do it anyway, whether you get the Kickstarter or not.
Yeah, this helps finance it, but I'm printing this damn comic anyway because I love it. But so the more we get, the better. It helps all the costs. which is due to Kickstarter, so it does make things more possible. And also printing the extra cards, the money helps me print the cards, but I don't want to charge people for them as well as that. They've paid by contributing. So it's that kind of, it's called a reward thing, so it should be a reward.
Yeah, you should get something for it. You should get good value. I always thought that.
Yeah, and it's a thank you, so thank you basically for supporting us.
We've had a little comment from Kevin. He was on the screen, but we didn't read it out. Sorry, Kevin. Kevin comes on to every single stream and makes a comment. It's like a little challenge that he's put out there. So thanks for that, Kevin. And he does. We know he loves Accent UK because he's been published by you guys. So
yeah, he's working with us on the P2A comic. Yep.
We've also had a comment from Neil Ross. Evening, guys. Evening, Neil. Very short and sharp there. Now it looks like Sam's trying to share something because we've been shoved to the side of the screen. So I'm expecting to see something like maybe the Kickstarter. I'm looking in the studio to see what he's doing. He's scratching his chin. So,
we got the first one up.
I mean, Dave, have you found that because the last year we've not been doing conventions, have you ramped up the Kickstarter much more?
Not ramped them up more, but they become more important to us. Because that's the feedback we're getting. That's the only kind of acknowledgement that we're doing stuff. This is it. He's got issues now. He's getting there. He's working his way through.
Hey, thanks, Sam.
Keep going.
Keep going. Next one.
Scroll down, mate.
The cons are really. I miss the cons like mad. I mean, the cons are just such a loss. I can't wait to get back to them. It's just.
I mean, we've said this before, but we were literally having one a week, weren't we? About 2 or 3 years ago, there was a con. True Believers would kick it off in sort of February, and it just went right the way through.
Yeah,
and every church hall or whatever in the, we had one in Melksham. There's everywhere, and from that, zero. I don't think
I mean, you guys. You guys attended a lot of cons as well, didn't you, Dave? I know.
Between me and Colin, we used to do about 17 collectively, and we did about 12 of those together. So I did the South, and Colin did the North, Scotland. That's where it's from. So we did loads, and they're all different and all fun. All fun to do. But can't wait for them to get back. So this now Kickstarter is the only kind of way we can get the cash in. So it helps us do the next one, the next one, the next one. Whereas it's only so much you can invest in these boxes of comics before you have to stop, because you've got to sell something.
But also with the Kickstarter, you can reach almost 200 people. I mean, if we did that at a con, that's a very good weekend. Blooming good weekend. And
oh god, yeah.
You have to work a con, don't you? To get those sort of numbers, you have to really work.
You have to work as well. It's funny, really. Kickstarters are quite interesting. I don't know if you've done one. I don't remember your books being on this, Shane, but
we did a few. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Was it early on? I don't remember recently.
Well, we never hit target. I think I did 4 Kickstarters.
And that's the point. You have to work it. You can't just sit back and expect people to find it. You have to go on Facebook groups. Get this kind of interview. You have to be out there trying to get it noticed.
I think our problem was that we did it. We were sort of trying to do it the old-fashioned way. So we were trying to pay, the creators full page rates, and it just wasn't. We just couldn't raise that sort of money. I think if we'd have done it the way that you guys are doing it, and build it as opposed to trying to start right at the point where you're doing it at a professional rate, but actually build it from a point, like an indie style book, then we'd have probably been a lot more successful.
The way that I do it, and I don't, I'm not trying to say everyone should do this, but what I tend to do is once we put it up for 500, hopefully get more than that, which we tend to do. And then once I've paid for the printing, then it's profit to share. So that's shared between me and Ian in this book, and it's just, and I won't tell you the percentage because, but it's just shared, it's up to people to share. But I think working with that model is doable. The artist doesn't feel like they're being abused because they can see what they've made and what we've made, and I share the costs and things. They know what they're getting. So I think that works. And the more you make, then that's the commitment of the artist to kind of try and work with you longer. The more you can make, the more they'll get eventually, and then it will become the sort of salary that the page rate that professionals get. That's the plan.
Yeah, you guys are in such a good position that there's just the two of you. I mean, some of the other indie titles like Brawler or the 77, where they have up to probably 10, 20 plus creators, colorists, inkers.
Yeah.
So that, that's why these guys ask for £3,000, £5,000. It's a shame thing trying to give a reasonable page rate, even if it's just 20 quid a page or
just something.
But which is great.
Do you find it quite intensive though, with just two of you doing all the work?
Well, I think Ian does most of the work, if I'm honest.
Oh, that's very charitable of you.
So the invisible person that's involved is Andy Bloor, who pulls it together at the end.
Yeah,
which makes it look professional. He does all my books, so it's important that they look as good as the Marvel and DC comics on the shelf. So that's
Andy's a great designer as well as being an artist as well.
Yeah. And my daughter does a proofreading, so she makes sure she points out things that Dad, you wouldn't do that. She's got a degree in English literature, so she knows what she's talking about, or that's not what they would use in that time, or whatever. Whichever book she's reading. So there's a few other people, but Ian does the majority of it, I must say.
So it's all on you, Ian. And how long did it take you to produce a typical page of artwork?
To do the pencils, I probably would do one page over. Well, it depends, really. But on average, to start and finish, I'd probably.
It's like asking a lady her age. You should never ask how long it takes to do.
I'm always interested.
I do 3 a day. I do 3 a day. You say you do 3 a day. Jack Kirby, 3 a day.
I'd probably do about a page every 3 days. When I'm flat out, and then it'll probably take me almost as long again to do the colouring. But I'm not working on that full time. I'm grabbing an hour here and there to try and pull it all together. And sometimes it'll take a week, and sometimes if the page is relatively straightforward, it might take me a little bit less. But
so when you say 3 days, do you mean 3 days, 3 evenings?
Not 3 full days. It's 3 evenings.
Yeah, over the evenings or
So if you were doing it full time, you could probably do a page a day.
I could definitely do a page a day, if I was doing it full time. But I am doing this because I enjoy doing it, so I don't mind the work sort of landing on. I genuinely love drawing. I love doing it. It's a big hobby of mine. It's like I'm sure, Andy, I know you draw every single day. It's just something that you do because you love it. And if we make
can't stop, can we?
No, if you make a bit of money on it, then that's great. But like Dave said, where if someone said, I don't know, one person will put £100 pledge in, or 50 people will put £2 pledges in, I'd rather the second one, because I'd rather 50 people read it than one. And me and Dave are both for that mind. Really the total amount of money that we get to is irrelevant. We're sort of looking at where we were with the backers on issue 1, the backers on issue 2, so it doubled for issue 2, and then we're looking, can we get above the backers that we got in issue 2? And we did. We were really pleased with the amount of people that saw the comic.
But if for instance, if these things happen, if for instance suddenly it was on £50,000, would you be prepared to stop it just being a hobby and then go pro?
I mean, it's a dream, like the idea that I sit and draw all day to earn my bread and butter, it will be
doing exactly what you want, and not working for the man, but doing this sort of stuff.
Doing this sort of stuff. I have
working for the man.
I have thought about like if you got a project where you were set with a character that you maybe didn't enjoy drawing as much, or a sort of location that you didn't enjoy drawing as much. I'm
talking someone like Dave Sim. Dave Sim on Cerebus.
Yeah, because I mean that's the thing. Doing your own thing is very different to work to hire, isn't it? Because I mean, I hear a lot of some artists they call it the grind, the work for hire grind, where they're just art monkeys and they're just doing what they're told. Yes, they're still doing what they love for a living and they're grateful for that, but in the back of their mind they're thinking, I wish I could be doing what I want to do. Whereas if this took off, like Andy says, hypothetically, that would be your creations. and it wouldn't just be working for the man. It would be, you're working for yourself basically, and that's the dream, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's not a huge amount of people that get to live that dream. So if it stays small scale like it is
but
now,
it happens though, doesn't it? I mean, people like the Etherington brothers, Etherington's on Kickstarter, get best part of £1 million, and they've never, massively.
Yeah,
it's just a magical thing how they managed to do it.
Yeah, what was the secret? What was the secret?
Yeah.
I don't know how I really don't know how they fucking did that, to be honest. It's incredible what they managed to raise. We just had a comment.
They were really smart.
Very
they put
smart.
everything out for free, didn't they? They gave it away. And so that meant that everyone jumped on it because it was free, there was no risk. And then when they asked for people to come back and put money into it, people were willing to do it because they were invested in the product.
Yeah.
So they just had a really smart business plan.
Just saying, Ian, there's a question from Kev. Is it true that Ian was Grimsby's under-12 Conquer champion 2 years running as a kid?
No, because I'm not from Grimsby originally. I just
moved there. From Grimby's, wherever Grimby's is.
Grimby's.
Grimby's.
That's a toy shop, isn't it? That's a totally made up question from Kevin. Thank you, Kevin.
And we read it out.
You did indeed. Caught you out, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
But it's just what I'm trying to say though is we are you're living the dream. You're creating comics. You're getting paid for it, not massively, but from the days when we were all doing the small press comics and there was no money flying around. Now, once you pay for Kickstarter and the taxes and various printing and production, there's still a little bit. I presume for you guys. I mean, if you get £2,000, that's. I mean,
that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, we remember, don't we? All of us probably, 20 years ago when small press started to really surge, and no one made anything. In fact, most people spent a lot of money getting their comics out there, and we never made anything. We spent a lot of money, and the quality was really high. I remember Accent UK when they started. We go a bit of going down memory lane a little bit, but right from the start, the stuff that you guys putting out was really high quality. It really was. I mean, you got some great artists to write.
Two or three cons, weren't there, a year in those days? 2 or 3 cons.
Yeah.
You used to take the things, which is great. But the chance that let's say you sold 50 books at a con, which is good for one book. You sold 20 the next one, 30, so you're getting through 100 a year.
Yeah,
that's not enough to make money at all. No. You pay for the health, you pay for the content, all these things, the travel. All those things. It never paid for itself. We kind of knew that. I think nowadays they just say a con a month, and if you get smart with your kind of travel and stuff, you can actually get money from it. Not huge amounts, but it becomes my kind of ambition for Acting UK was always that it pays for itself.
Yeah.
So I didn't spend my money. It just kind of anything more it made, I'd do more, and just let it kind of feed itself and grow more and more. And we kind of are there and beyond it a little bit, I guess. But we're not. I wouldn't say that I'd ever think about leaving my job. But my job helps me pay for this hobby I love.
Yeah.
So it helps me get up and go to work every day in a way. But yeah, it's the world has changed. The Comic Cons, the number of them, and the quality of the competition now. So when we started Shane back in Bristol, in the shed by the train station,
the cattle shed.
There's probably about 20 indie books, probably. Yeah,
something like 20, 25. I remember because I distributed everybody's.
That's how I met Colin that we did the Accent UK together. But now there's 200 or maybe even 2,000. There's loads and loads of them, and the quality of them to look at is really, really good.
I think when Bristol first started, it was in the watershed.
That's the word. Down by
which was before this. Well, there was the train shed, but the watershed was the art centre down by the river. There was because it was when Kev Sutherland was doing it. There was very few indie books back then. This was when was that? 2000 and. God, no, earlier.
2000, no, it was 1999. The first
99,
one. 99, yeah. Because I went to that, and there was me. There was me doing I wasn't even Small Zone then. I was just doing Comic Artists of the Future. Oh, sorry for that title.
Yeah.
So I was just doing that, and there was Gary Northfield sat next to me doing Great. That was his comic that he put out.
Yeah.
And then on the other side was Deck Baker, who was doing all the War Gods of Atlantis and all that stuff, which was awesome. But everybody was just mostly photocopying, you know, with coloured paper for the covers, you know, because we couldn't afford, you know, printers.
I think he was the one I bought the book off for how to self-publish. The little kind of thing, and that's what got me going. I thought, okay, I can see how this works. You know, then I had to find. I tried drawing myself at the beginning. I'm not sure if you remember rightly.
I do remember.
It wasn't quite in standard. And then I found proper artists.
Hey, you had a good crack at it, Dave. You had. I've still got some of those comics actually. What was it called?
More Than We Seem.
More Than We Seem. That's it. Was that a reference to the fact that, you know, you are an artist, not just a writer?
Yeah, thank you.
Have you seen Dave's art, Ian? Have you seen any of it?
Yeah,
it's not bad, is it? It's not bad.
It's not bad.
But my recent stuff is more Mr. Ben, David McKeith kind of stuff. But the early stuff I've tried to draw anatomically correct and things, and it just took me longer and longer to get each issue. I became more aware of what it should be. You know, it wasn't right. It was never right. That's it. It just took forever. I'll maybe find something, and one day I'll show you when we've had a few beers.
Yeah,
I'll have to dig them out.
When we finally get in the convention bar again.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I'm thinking that actually some of that old stuff from Accent UK from back in the day, you know, it's almost classic now, isn't it? It's collectible. I'll see if I can get like double my money for it.
£3, not £1.50.
Yeah, £1.95, I think the first ones. But
they were quite expensive to make, weren't they? Though you did proper comics, it was like,
they were
glossy covers.
That's one of the things that changed in the kind of interim was the printers became better. You know, we've worked out the UK size was cheaper to print. That was me chatting to Stuart Gould, because the cost was this. I said, "What? How can we make it cheap?" He said, "Well, reduce the size to this, and it will be a third of 2/3 the price." I'm like, "What?" So it's only a little bit. It's almost the same proportions as the American comic, but a bit smaller. I said, "Well, we'll do them then. We'll call it the UK format. We'll do it that size. It saves me money." You know, it's just we just learned as we go, and the printers became much better. It wasn't your local print shop that did the really bad job. It was actually someone that printed comics.
Understood what comics.
And they all kind of ahead of us or just with us, and it made us look as good as the American books and the shops. You know,
was it Accent UK that published Andy Blaw's stuff?
Yeah, Wolfman. I wrote that.
Wolfman.
The Wolfman. You wrote it. Of course you did.
Yeah, but not the latest stuff. So Andy's doing his own thing now with Mo Ali. He did Mo Ali with
that original black, white, and red.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
Which hopefully we'll get finished one day. But Andy's got 2 kids, and they swim, so he's up at 5 in the morning with swimming lessons, and it's just life takes over.
Yeah.
I mean, Andy puts up on Twitter how it's when like when Ian says like when the hobby, if it starts to take over a little bit. And what are you? What?
It's always fun. And that's the key thing. This is a hobby. It's fun. If it's not fun, I always say to my artists, they say, "Oh, it's going to take me another month to do this." I say, "Look, it's done when it's done. You know, just you've got to enjoy it. Because if it becomes a job, you don't like it."
But what's interesting though with art is it's not, to me, it's not a hobby or it's not a job or a vacation. It's just we're artists. We cannot do anything about it. We might not make money from it per se. But
that's why we're sometimes in a bad position, because we have to, as artists, and I know it's going to be the same as a writer as well, Dave, for you have to write. You're a writer, so you have to write. There's no sort of option. You have to get that stuff out there, and it's the same for artists. So we are in that position where we have to do it. So some people sort of think, well, you've got to do it anyway, so why should we pay you? You know what I mean? It's that you're in that sort of position sometimes. It's like, well, we know you're going to do it, so if we just wait around, eventually you're going to splurge out a load of brilliant work, and we're just going to take it, And it is a little bit like that for artists, like a plumber doesn't have to plumb, do they? They can just sit and watch TV and they're content. But an artist or a writer or a musician, you've got to do it. There's no choice.
It's that creative thing, isn't it?
You say that though, but the 3 o'clock in the morning, the wife's up there and the plumber's downstairs taking the taps off. Thought you were just watching telly. Oh, I can't help
I thought that's a euphemism then, Andy.
Sorting out his pipe.
Taking the
Could
taps
be a euphemism. Oh, but but you're right. I mean, some artists. I've spoken to artists before, and they'll say, "Well, I just do it for the money, really." It's like, you're not an artist, then you're an illustrator, or I mean, Ian. I mean, you're very obviously do incredibly well on Instagram and social media.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not doing that to fuel that, are you? You're just like me. You just create something, you just stick it up.
Yeah,
and then
it's quite interesting because listening to what you're saying, a lot of my best jobs that I've sort of landed have come through an element of free work. So that I know it's a real controversial sort of subject, but the best jobs I've got is by doing something without pay and then it lead into something really great. So Key is a kind of example of that, because I was putting a pitch together with a friend of mine. We were both working.
I was about to say, pitch is it's a thing that happens in all walks of life. You'll give a quote, or you'll do some background work.
Yeah, and then that then got sold by Dave, who took me on and then offered me Kia. And also I worked for a charity anthology that was free work, and that led to, well, I think that was one of the main reasons I got to work on Space Warp as well. So they've all led to something really amazing. So whilst we do want paying for what we're doing, I think you can find a balance where if you think that this could potentially go somewhere, this is worth seeing it through, then I personally believe you can make producing free work for you as well. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I think there's a time and a place for it, because you are promoting yourself with your free work, aren't you? And it's making the right choices, isn't it? It's like, what do I? Because your time has value. So it's like, if I invest, a week in this free work, will it pay off in the long run? And in a lot of cases, yes. I think the answer is definitely yes. And I think it's sometimes you'd be a fool not to take, the opportunity to get genuine exposure. It's like, I mean, that's the classic one, isn't it? I'll pay you in exposure, but sometimes that can work without a doubt. If you're working with a really well-known writer, for example, like Pat Mills, for example, that's probably going to lead on to something. Whereas if you're working with, I don't know, Dave West,
I knew that was coming.
I'm joking, of course. I am joking, of course. But you've got to make those decisions, haven't you, Ian?
Well, I work with both of those people. I'm lucky enough to work with both Pat and Dave, and like I said, it's that they're both great to work for, and Spacewalk might lead to getting more work. I don't know. I don't mind. I mean, I'm happy working with Pat on what he does, and I'm happy working with Dave on what he does. And they're the two projects that I really love doing. That they sort of fit together, because Pat's a lot more like sort of structured in what he wants in terms of the panel has to work this way, and he'll tell you exactly what he wants. Where Dave gives you, like we talked about earlier, that freedom. And I think they work really well together, because I quite like coming away from Space Warp and Hellbreaker and then doing a bit of Kia Wordsmith and having a bit more freedom to play around with page layouts and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
But it's also really great to work with someone like Pat Mills, because I can bring everything he's teaching me into what I'm doing with Kia Wordsmith. It's not like the two work hand in hand.
Yeah,
it's
one can almost feed the other, can't it? Sorry, Andy.
It's almost like being in two different bands. One where you're just a session musician, and then the other where you're the lead guitarist. You're writing
which Which is which, Andy? You know, you've made that analogy. Now
you. One you could be in Oasis, or the other you could be in Ride. that's the old Brit pop, wasn't it? Andy Bell.
That's right. Yeah.
That's going back some time.
Who'd want to be in Oasis anyway? Oh God.
Well, that's it, isn't it? He had to learn the bass, didn't he, of all the Oasis songs?
Is that right?
He was the guitarist of Ride.
Yeah.
And then he had to just overnight just learn to play bass and whatever.
Well, it's Oasis, isn't it? On all the bass lines the same. Sorry to all the Oasis fans out there. I know there's still a few around.
But anyway, we need to go back to the Kickstarter because that's why you guys are here.
Yes.
Give it some more upping, some more love.
Give it some welly. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go and find the actual new Kickstarter because Sam hasn't bothered. So, he's just sitting there drinking pop.
He's teasing you.
I think it is a very kind of fantasy comic. So it's kind of I played D&D since I was 15. So God knows how many years I won't even say. So Dungeons and Dragons has been a big passion of mine. So this is my kind of tribute or homage to Dungeons and Dragons. So it's very set in that kind of world. Although in my version of it, magic and science exist together.
Yeah.
So it is going to come round with some kind of, you'll see characters that you might recognise from a D&D kind of concept, like a magic user, a thief, etc. at a level. It's a much more. I also love the books of Joe Abercrombie. I don't know if you've ever read any of those.
No.
But you're missing out big time.
Not really.
He does really, really gritty characters. So it's kind of all these things. And it's when you create something, you write something, you try not to, you don't want to copy anybody else at all. Yeah.
No.
You are influenced by all these things, and it's where it all comes together in your own kind of story.
Yeah.
And it's that. So if you like,
you can't help it, can you? You can't help being influenced. You know.
No.
Sometimes you don't even realise it's happening.
No, and I've come up with some great ideas for my I do a Blessed Curse comic about power, good side and the bad side of power. And I've had a great idea and I told my daughter this is it, and I've written it, and I've got a guy to draw actually. And she said, "Oh, it's like that anime series about so and so." I'm like, "What? You know, what's that?" He told me this thing about, and it's the same ability, completely different story, different character, but it's been done before. I'm like, oh God! I thought it was for a minute there. I thought it was a new
completely
idea.
Original. Yeah,
yeah.
We've all done it.
Nothing, you just can't. You can't. And the fastest man about stopping time. That's an old Twilight Zone episode. Someone showed me that woman that stopped time, and everyone froze apart from her.
Oh right, yeah. Well, I always remember that part. Was it the movie of the Twilight Zone? There was a part of that did that. Was it the movie or was it a TV series? I can't remember.
One I saw was a TV episode, black and white.
Yeah, she had an amulet that stopped time. And it was, and I'll never forget the scene. And she's walking around the city, and there's like a nuclear missile just like stuck in the sky.
Yeah, that's a TV series. Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. I love stuff like that.
Yeah, no, someone and I got it, and I watched it and thought, yeah, it's a similar idea. What can you do? What can you do?
And Ian, what are your influences art-wise? Who are the artists that you draw your inspiration from?
Well, for this one, it's mainly a lot of book illustrators. I love like Edmund Dulac and Arthur Rackham, who me and David talked about the other day, and Brian Froud and people like that, and those sort of fancy illustrators. I also, comics-wise, I really like Bernie Wrightson and some of the older sort of artists, I suppose, Wally Wood.
Great stuff.
Frank Frazetta, Al Williamson.
Oh, wow.
More modern ones. I like Jay Lee a lot.
I was going to mention actually on the one illustration that you had on there was a really nice one, and it looked a bit. There was a feel of Jay Lee in its composition. You know,
I think he is an influence.
I think the in-between, Ian, it struck me, remind me of, is it Roger Dean that did the Yes covers?
Yeah.
Roger Dean.
That's the way he did the trees.
Roger Dean did all the Yes covers, and like Richard Corbin, he did quite a few album covers as well, didn't he? And just people like that. I really like sort of those I think a lot of the artwork especially in the small press at the moment, is kind of like manga orientated or has a very cartoon like, and that's brilliant, that art as well. I love that as well. But I wanted to have a style that's a little bit different to what you'd see in a lot of books, and it is more illustrative. It's more representational, I feel, in many ways. And I think people, if they like some of the names that I've just mentioned, and they go and have a look at it, I think they'll see similarities. They'll probably see some of those influences.
Yeah, definitely. I think that Kevin has slipped Sam a bribe.
He's shown
the V2A Kickstarter. Kevin, that's very clever how you've got Sam to do that in somebody else's show. But of course, you did write this, Dave, so there is a tenuous link.
Yeah. So this is what I've done with so there's a band called V2A, and the lead singer, the writer, all the main man, a guy called Kevin Crone. We've collaborated on this post-apocalyptic kind of Mad Max meets Suicide Squad comic, which we got PJ Holden to draw. This is our foray into someone that does it as a job rather than a passion. Call it, and it's interesting the similarities between the working with different artists, and I won't go into anything more detail, but the similarities. I expected a professional to be more to the letter, to the schedule, to this, to that, to the other. But things happen in their world as well as in our world that pushes things out. So it's interesting. But that's great fun. Again, it's collaborating with the writers. The first time I've ever done that, really. Although with Western Noir, Gary actually co-writes it with me. But so each one, I just love the kind of, I love collaboration actually, because you get so much more from the two of you than you would from one of you.
Oh yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, it could be an art idea, it's even,
witness.
So even Brad Tuttle, the Indio as we call him on the Sims' Robot, it's panels, but I've kind of, there's pages of this craziness. I love his art, and I think, where's that come from? And I find the script, and it's like a paragraph, and he just got carried away with it. It just coming on, and he's just done this crazy, and it's just fabulous. And so I then extend that section because it's just great, and that kind of feeds itself. It's just great fun.
Yeah,
he's a great artist, Dave. I really love his work, and I think what he's done on Stevenson's Robot's amazing. He is fantastic. I think he's a tattoo artist by trade as well, so he creates these mad tattoos, and then he's doing these amazing sequentials. I don't think enough people know about him. He's really good, and we've also got to mention, we haven't mentioned him, but Gary Crutchley, who works with you, and Matt Soff, who works on Western Noir.
Those guys are great.
Fantastic work, and really, I'm really proud to be part of like this Accent UK sort of publishing house, because they are putting out books with some phenomenal artists, like the V2A book that we've just mentioned, Western Noir, Stevenson's Robot. You were talking about the good old days, like 20 odd years of doing this in the small press. Winning Eagle Awards, right, Dave? Get that in there for you.
Never forget that one. Never forget that one.
He's too polite to mention it itself, but it's such an achievement. And so now, if the Kickstarters do well, that's great, because it's what they deserve. And I know the V2A one and the Western Noir went massive, really.
So actually, Kickstarter is a collective, really, way back with me and Colin and the guys in Manchester. Trying to share costs and things at cons. And I think it's kind of gone through shrinking down to me and Colin. It's become a collective again. So I love working with my artists, as that community. And they do little bits for each other, cards, Kickstarters and things, all very supportive. And the money goes into itself. So, the little account I have in my bank account with Accent UK stuff in, it's just feeding itself. And it's great. And I can get another artist. There's a guy that's actually I won't give his name yet, but I'll do a Kickstarter one day. But he's a nurse. He's a foreign national that's come in. He's a nurse, and he showed me some work. And it's like, wow, a bit like you, Ian. It's like, wow, that's really cool. Very distinctive style, very different. So again, we got him to do a Western Noir tale to start with, which we got published yet for the COVID stuff. And now I've got him working on my next Best Cursed because I just love the style. He loves to do it, and I pay him money. And it's it's just feeding it's feeding itself. It's great. I'm just
I find it fascinating that a lot of this great indie underground stuff is coming from people with jobs. We've all got day jobs, so our mortgage is covered or our bills are covered, so we're not having to worry. So therefore, the passion or the hobby or whatever, as Ian was calling it, you can then focus on. You're not worried about not making enough money. Because if you're working for the prog, they're still only going to be paying you £200 a page or whatever. So you're going to be on 15 grand a year.
You don't need them
as a teacher.
You don't need these big publishers. I think things like Kickstarter.
No.
I mean, you have to look at what Gustavo, who Dave gave his first published work to as well. Gustavo Vargas he's just had a massive Kickstarter, hasn't he? And he's not needed any publishing house behind him. He's just done it through Kickstarter.
Just cut out the middleman, basically, isn't it?
And I would say as well, go to the comic division, MCM, and place these comic cons. Just go to them and not buy Marvel and DC. Just have a look at that village, the comics village, and just see the range of titles. There's slice of life, there's horror, there's futuristic,
it's incredible.
There's westerns, western horror. It's all there. Some of it, is not quite as good as other bits in different ways, but you feel
not as good as Accent UK.
you feel the passion coming through, and some of it is just you look at it and think, why is that not in the comic shop? Why is that not next to Marvel and DC? It's just really good, and it's hard to get into those shops. It's hard, as get through Diamond and all that stuff. And comic shops, through COVID, they're so struggling anyway, so they're not going to spend money on an indie book when they have to get their X-Men titles for the all that sort of stuff. So it's a challenging game. I don't think I could have ever hoped to make it living wage. That would never have happened. I don't think that will happen for me. But you never know. As you say,
people have done it. People do it.
Yeah, you never know.
But there is a lot of dedication required. As it's you've really got to put the work and the hours in because there's no one else to do it for you.
And it is a business. You've got costs and income, outgoings. You've got all this stuff. You've got to balance in a way, otherwise you will sink. I remember giving some advice to a kid way back as we did this comic, and it was quite abstracty, and it was okay. And I said, well, print it A5 because it'll look tighter, and don't print too many because you've got to sell them to then pay for the next one. Each time I saw it, I said, here it is. It was a massive thing. I said, all right, okay, it's big, and it looked a bit, okay, fine. How much you print? 2,000. I said, where are you going to
whatever you said, he just flipped it.
I know better.
Yeah, and I never saw him again. After one or two this didn't exist.
He's buried under a pile of books. That's why.
Yeah, it's
buried.
It's such a shame because he could have grown slowly and built up, and he might have still been around with a very abstract style, which was interesting, and it could have evolved. But 2,000, whatever that cost, I just killed him.
Especially as a big size as well. Printing of that must have been astronomical.
I couldn't believe it. I thought, oh, what a shame.
I bet Stuart Gold loved the print on that one.
He's rubbing his hands when he saw that one.
Stuart's going, oh yeah, we'll do it A3. I'll do it 2,000.
Hardback.
Back up the line.
Full colour. Going to litho it, silver. We're going to put foil on it.
A shame.
Oh, well, we live and learn, don't we? We live and learn.
Yeah.
So we're just about at the end of the hour, guys. Yeah. So before we go, I just do want to say a massive thank you to you guys for coming on, Ian and Dave.
Yeah,
thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
I hope you've had a good time. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
How long have we got Kickstarter running for? Just let the viewers know.
So it's the whole of April.
End of the month. So still
plenty of time.
We've only just done over a week, and I'd just like to say, if anyone is listening who's backed it, thank you so much, because it has exceeded what we thought it would get. It's a project that sort of came out of an idea me and Dave had, and we really hope we're giving people value for money, and if you haven't backed it yet or taken a look, have a look. I think you'll like what you see.
Yeah, I'm going to go. When we finish this, I'm going to stick my pledge on.
Thank you very much, Andy.
You just look at the artwork and it sells it. You know, it's beautiful stuff, mate. It really is.
Yeah.
Well, it's worth it for Dave's writing as well.
Of course, but you can't instantly see that, can you?
There's words in it. There's words.
We'll take your word for it, Dave.
I do sometimes just leave the words off. It looks so nice. Just leave the words.
Yeah.
All right then, guys. Well, thank you very much. Have yourselves a great evening, and we'll see you very soon in the real world, I hope.
Yeah, Andrew.
See you later, guys.
Bye.
See you soon, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.